I remember that Halloween by the sound of leaves scraping across the pavement like the world was whispering a warning I didn't want to hear. Back then, I told myself it was just another night. Just another cheap costume and a paper bag full of sugar to make my son forget that the world could be cruel. But deep down, I think I already knew something was coming. Something that would change everything. My name is Elena. I was 29. Exhausted. And barely holding it together. By day, I worked a diner shift until my feet went numb. By night, I cleaned offices that smelled like lemon and loneliness. My life was a list of small humiliations, past due bills, cheap dinners, and the silence that fills a room when you've been alone too long. But my son, Jamie, he was the only thing I ever did right. 6 years old. All light and laughter. Obsessed with monsters and magic. Halloween was his favorite day of the year. And I was determined to make it perfect. Even if I only had $23 left in my account, he wore a red cape that dragged across the sidewalk, and plastic vampire fangs too big for his mouth. Every few steps, he had to push them back in, with a chocolate sticky finger, grinning up at me like the world was still a good place. Mom. Come on. You're too slow, he shouted. Cape flapping behind him, I laughed. Even though my chest ached with a kind of sadness I couldn't name. For one night, I didn't want to think about overdue rent or the man I'd left behind in another life, the man I was still hiding from. For one night, I just wanted to be a mother, walking beside her son, pretending that everything was okay. The neighborhood glowed orange with porch lights and carved pumpkins. Laughter spilled from every doorway. The air sweet with sugar and smoke. And for a while, it felt almost normal. Almost, until we turned the corner onto Maple Street. That's when I saw it, the house at the very end. No decorations. No lights. Just a tall, black gate and windows swallowed by darkness. It didn't belong here. Not among the cheerful ghosts and plastic spiders. It looked like a place the night itself refused to enter. Jamie stopped in front of it, his small hand tightening around mine. Mum, he whispered. That house looks like a vampire castle. I forced a smile. That's one way to put it. But it's not on our list. Sweetheart. Let's go to the next one. He frowned, lips sticking out in determination. But what if they have the good candy, the gold ones? I should have said no. God. I did say no. But Jamie had my eyes, and my weakness was always him. Before I could stop him, he slipped free and ran toward the gate. Cape flying like blood in the dark. Yemi, my voice cracked. Panic scraping my throat. Get back here. He didn't even look back. The small iron gate wasn't locked. He pushed it open easily and darted up the stone steps toward the mansion's door. By the time I caught up, breathless and shaking, he was already knocking. 3 small, confident taps that echoed through the night like a dare. I reached out, ready to pull him away, but the door opened. At first, I thought no one was there. Then I saw him. He filled the doorway like a shadow, come to life. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black with his sleeves rolled up, showing veins that caught the light like lines of silver. He wasn't wearing a costume. He wasn't pretending to be anyone else. He just was. For a heartbeat, everything went still. Then his gaze dropped to Jamie. What are you supposed to be? Kid. Jamie puffed out his little chest. A vampire. But a nice one. The corner of the man's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. A nice vampire. Huh? Rare breed. His voice was low and steady. The kind of voice that carried weight. Dangerous and magnetic all at once. Then his eyes lifted to mine. Dark. Steady. Too sharp for comfort. He looked at me like he could see straight through my fear. My exhaustion. My lies. Like he already knew the parts of me I tried hardest to hide. "And what about you?" he asked, quietly. "Who are you supposed to be?" My throat went dry. "Just his mom," I said. "We were leaving." He didn't move. Didn't blink. He stepped forward just enough that the light spilled across his face. I caught the faint scent of smoke and cedar. It was expensive. Subtle. And entirely out of place in this neighborhood. "You knocked," he said finally, eyes flicking toward Jamie's candy bucket. "You might as well take something." Before I could answer, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a gold-wrapped chocolate bar. It wasn't any brand I recognized. It looked imported. Maybe handmade, too elegant for a child's treat. Jamie's eyes went wide. "Thank you," he said, tearing the wrapper open before I could stop him. The man straightened, gaze lingering on me. "You don't need to knock on any more doors tonight." The words weren't a suggestion. They were a verdict. I froze, unsure whether to thank him or run. "Excuse me," I managed, my pulse hammering. He studied me for a long moment, like he was memorizing something. Then his tone softened. But his words didn't. "It's not safe out there. Roads get darker. People get careless." I forced a shaky smile. "I can handle the dark." He tilted his head slightly, eyes narrowing. "You sure about that?" Something in the way he said it made my breath catch. It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't even threat. It was recognition. Before I could speak again, Jamie tugged at my sleeve. "Mum, can we see the inside? It looks like a castle." "No," I said quickly. "We're going home." The man looked at Jamie and smiled, a real one this time. Soft and almost kind. "Maybe next time." "Kid," he murmured. Then to me, "You should get him home. But if you ever need a safer street to walk, come back here." I wanted to ask what he meant, but he didn't, because his eyes already said enough. We left fast. I didn't breathe until we were halfway down the block, until the mansion was just another shadow behind us. Jamie munched on his candy, completely unaware of the storm in my chest. He was nice. "Mum," he said, smiling up at me. He didn't even scare me. I forced a laugh. "Yeah. Well, not everyone needs a mask to be scary." I thought that was the end of it. Just one strange encounter on a cold night. But later, when I tucked Jamie into bed and emptied his candy bucket, something caught my eye. A small, black card. No name on the front. Just embossed letters on the back. Damian Ross. No phone number. No message. Only an address. The same house at the end of Maple Street. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe curiosity. Maybe something darker. But as I slid it into the drawer beside my bed, I felt the air change. That night, the wind outside sounded like footsteps. And somewhere deep down, I knew whatever had started at that door wasn't finished with me yet. It happened 3 days after Halloween. The air had turned colder, sharp enough to bite through my coat, and the last of the pumpkins on Maple Street had started to rot, their smiles collapsing inward. Their candles long dead. Jamie and I were walking home from school. I remember he was talking about superheroes, swinging his lunchbox, completely unaware that I was counting coins in my pocket, wondering if we could stretch dinner into tomorrow. Then I heard the low hum of an engine behind us. Slow. Expensive. Out of place. A black car rolled to a stop beside the sidewalk. The window lowered, and my heart tripped the way it does when your body knows danger before your mind catches up. It was him. Damian Ross. He didn't smile. He didn't even pretend this was coincidence. He just leaned an elbow against the window frame and said, in that low, stereo voice, Your tears flit. Back left. You shouldn't drive like that, not in this neighborhood. I froze. My car was parked a block away. And he'd noticed something I hadn't. I started. But he cut me off with a look that silenced the rest. It wasn't threatening. It was something worse certain. He opened the door and stepped out. The cold catching the edge of his coat. Get in. I'll drop you off. I should have said no. Every survival instinct screamed that this was wrong too much. Too soon. Too close. But Jamie's eyes lit up like it was Christmas morning. Mum. Can we please? It's freezing. And maybe it was exhaustion. Or curiosity. Or that strange pull I couldn't explain. But I nodded. The car smelled like smoke and cedar, just like him. Jamie chattered from the back seat, asking questions about the car. The buttons. The speed. Damien answered him in short, amused tones. Glancing at me in the mirror every few miles, we passed my street. Then another, finally. I realized where we were headed. The road curved. Trees thickened. And the world fell quiet. He was taking us back to the mansion at the end of Maple Street. Stop the car. I said, my apartment's back there. He didn't slow down. You said you wanted safe. He replied, this is it. I didn't answer. Because part of me, the part that still flinched at shadows, wondered if maybe he was right. When we pulled through the gates, I saw the house differently. It wasn't the monster it had been that night. Soft amber lights glowed behind the windows. Pumpkins lined the path. Carved, clean and simple. Someone had made an effort to make it look alive again. Jamie ran ahead, his laughter echoing through the yard. I told myself I'd stay 10 minutes, just long enough to be polite, to say thank you. But 10 minutes turned into tea, in a grand kitchen that smelled like cinnamon and something unfamiliar comfort. And then tea turned into dinner. Jamie adored him. Within an hour, he was sitting beside Damien, showing him his toy cars, asking if he'd ever been a vampire. Damien just smiled, quiet and patient. The kind of patience you don't expect from men like him. I tried to stay guarded, to keep my distance. But the walls of that house and the man inside it had a way of pulling you in. Later that night, after Jamie had fallen asleep on the couch, I found myself on the balcony. The city stretched below, lights flickering like dying stars. The wind was cold, but I needed the air. I didn't hear him approach. I just felt it, the shift in space. The quiet gravity of him standing beside me. You shouldn't be afraid of me, he said softly. I didn't look at him. I'm not. He laughed under his breath, low, disbelieving. You lie beautifully. Something in his tone made my pulse stumble. It wasn't flirtation. It was acknowledgement. Like, he could feel the fear I tried to hide, and the pull. I couldn't. We stood there in silence. The city breathing below us. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about running, and that terrified me more than anything else. Over the next few days, the mansion began to feel less like a fortress, and more like a waiting room, for something I couldn't name. Jamie was happy, the happiest I'd seen him in years. He played with Damien's dog, watched movies in rooms bigger than our whole apartment. Damien kept his distance, but I could feel him everywhere, in the way the staff avoided his gaze, in the silence that followed when he entered a room, in the weight of his presence even when he wasn't near. One evening, he joined me in the library. I was sitting by the fire, pretending to read. He poured himself a drink, leaned against the table, and said, "Someone's been asking about you." My stomach dropped. Who? He swirled the glass in his hand, watching the light flicker across it. Marcus Hale. The name hit me like a blow. My ex-husband. A man with too much money, too much charm, and a darkness that never needed to raise its voice. The man I'd run from 6 years ago, taking only a suitcase, and my son, Damien's gaze mimine. You don't have to be afraid of him anymore. My hands shook, but he kept my voice steady. How do you know about Marcus? He took a slow sip, eyes never leaving me. I know everything that happens in this city. There was a long silence. Finally, he said, you and Jamie will stay here, just until it's safe. I wanted to protest to say we didn't need his protection, that we'd be fine. But the way he said it left no room for argument, a command disguised as kindness. And for reasons I couldn't explain, I didn't want to argue. That night, I walked the halls after Jamie had fallen asleep. The mansion was too quiet. Every shadow felt like it was watching. I told myself I was being paranoid until I saw the door to Damien's study slightly open. The fire inside had burned low. Papers were scattered across the desk. And in the center, framed in dark wood, was a photograph. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then my stomach turned to ice. It was me, younger, smiling in a dress I hadn't seen in years. Beside me stood Marcus, his hand possessive on my waist. And behind us, half shadowed in the background, was Damien. I stepped closer, my breath catching. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't chance. He'd known me, long before Halloween night. Long before that knock on his door. My mind spun. Questions tangled in fear. Had he been following me? Protecting me? Or was I just another ghost from his world? Something unfinished. I turned the photo over. On the back, in careful handwriting, was a single word. Elena. Just my name. No message. The sound of footsteps in the hall made me freeze. For a heartbeat. I thought about hiding the photo. But what would be the point? He already knew everything. I put the frame down, hands trembling, and stepped back into the corridor. The air felt different now, thicker, heavier. The mansion no longer felt like safety. It felt like a cage made of secrets. And as I walked away, one thought echoed through my head like a warning. I was too late to hear. Damien Ross hadn't just opened the door that night. He'd been waiting for me to knock. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the photograph, that frozen smile. That ghost of a past I'd tried so hard to bury. By morning, the truth was too loud to ignore. When I found Damien in the library, the air between us was already heavy with what I knew. He was standing by the fire, sleeves rolled up. The same calm that used to make me feel safe, now twisting like a blade in my chest. You were never a stranger. Were you? I said. He didn't move for a long moment. Then he looked up. And in that silence, I had my answer. No, he said quietly. I wasn't. His voice was softer than I expected. Almost regretful. I worked for Marcus, he went on. I was sent to find you, to bring you back. He took a breath, eyes flickering with something that looked a lot like shame. But when I saw what he'd done to you, I couldn't hand you back. My throat burned. So you just decided to play guardian angel? I disappeared, he said. Changed sides. Protected you from the shadows. The words should have meant something. They should have felt like salvation. But all I could hear was the truth beneath them, that my safety had never been chance. It had been him. All along. Watching from the dark, my voice cracked. You should have told me. He stepped closer. Slow. Cautious. Would you have believed me? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because part of me knew he was right. But the other part, the one that still remembered, bruises and fear, and the years I'd spent rebuilding myself, wanted to run. So I did. I grabbed Jamie from his room, packed a bag, and left before the sun had fully risen. No goodbyes. No explanations. Just the sound of my heartbeat screaming that I had to get out. We took a cab to the other side of the city. I dropped Jamie off at school. Told him I'd be back by lunch. Then I sat in a diner, staring at the coffee I couldn't drink, trying to figure out where to go next. That's when the phone call came. The school secretary's voice was nervous. Mrs. Lane, Jamie never checked in this morning. For a second, the world went white. Then everything inside me collapsed. I hadn't let me go. Had kept my son. By the time I reached the mansion, the gates were open. The air was thick. Still. Wrong. My pulse pounded as I ran through the courtyard and into the hall, and then I saw him, Damien, standing at the far end of the room, by the fireplace. Jamie was sitting on the rug with a pile of toy cars, smiling, oblivious. You had no right. I said, breathless. You had no right to keep him here. He didn't argue. His voice was calm, almost pleading. You were never supposed to leave like that. Like what I snapped. Like someone escaping. He flinched at the word. Like someone running from the wrong man. Before I could answer, the sound of engines shattered the air outside. Then doors slammed. Shouts. Boots on marble. And I saw the look on Damien's face change. Not surprise. But recognition. They found you. He said under his breath. Marcus was here. The next moments blurred into chaos. Men with guns flooding the hallway. Jamie screaming my name. Damien grabbed me. Pulled us behind a column just as glass shattered. And bullets tore through the room. He returned, fire, precise. Controlled. Terrifying. I'd never seen anyone move like that. He wasn't just defending himself. He was defending us. Marcus's voice cut through the gunfire. Come out. Elena. You think he's your savior. He's mine. He works for me. Damien's jag tightened. Not anymore. The next seconds felt like eternity. A flash of movement. A burst of light. The sound of something final. When the noise faded, Marcus lay on the floor, eyes wide, a red bloom spreading across his shirt. And Damien was on his knees, a dark stain spreading over his ribs. I crawled to him, hands shaking, blood and tears mixing on my skin. Stay with me, please. Stay with me. He smiled faintly. The kind of smile that hurts more than any wound. You knocked on my door. He whispered. I had to answer. I shook my head, sobbing. You didn't have to do this. His fingers brushed me. Weak, but deliberate. Tell him, he said, glancing toward Jamie. Tell him I was never the monster he thought I was. And then his eyes closed. The world went silent. I don't remember much after that. Only sirens. Flashing lights. Strangers' hands pulling me away from the body of a man I never should have loved. Monspest. Winter came early that year. The city looked cleaner under snow, like it was trying to hide the blood that had once soaked its streets. Jamie and I moved to a small town by the coast. I found work in a cafe. It smelled of coffee and cinnamon, and peace things I'd forgotten existed. Jamie made friends. He laughed again. Sometimes, when people asked about his father, had to say, I don't have one. But I used to know a man in black who scared away monsters. And they'd laugh, thinking it was a story. But I knew better. I never told him the whole truth. Only that Damien had once promised to keep us safe. And he had kept that promise. Even when it cost him everything. On Halloween night, I closed the cafe early. Jamie was asleep by the window. Candy piled around him. Cape still on. Outside. The wind sounded, just like it had that first night, whispering across the pavement. Warning and welcoming. all at once. That's when I saw it. A small black box sitting on the porch. No label. No footprints in the snow leading to it. Inside was a single gold-wrapped chocolate bar. No noche. I stood there for a long time. The cold seeping through my hands. Tears blurring the gold, until it gleamed like memory. Love doesn't always save you, I whispered. Sometimes it hides you long enough to heal. I placed the candy on the railing, and looked out at the street. Every Halloween, I said softly. I still leave one on the porch, just in case he ever finds his way back. The wind answered with silence. But in that silence, I almost heard it, the echo of a low voice. The sound of footsteps fading into the dark, and for the first time, I didn't feel afraid. Only grateful. Because some doors, once opened, never really close. If this story stayed with you, tell me what part touched you the most. Do you think Damien was a monster? Or a man trying to love the only way he knew how? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy stories about love, danger, and redemption, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps this channel grow and brings you more whispered confessions like this one. And remember, some doors are meant to be opened, even if they lead straight into the dark.